Please welcome Alec Lynch from Design Crowd.
So tonight I'm going to spend some time talking about a crowdsourcing business that I operate called designcrowd.com. And I'm going to give you 5 tips in 5 minutes on how to run a successful crowdsourcing project, whether it's through Outside or any other service. The tips that I'm going to give you are intended to help you across the crowdsourcing process at all of the 3 typical steps that you would encounter when running a crowdsourcing project. Before going into the details of those tips, I'm going to explain how that process works at our website, Design Crowd. At Design Crowd, the way it works is if a business needs a logo, a website, or a graphic design, any type of graphic design, they come to our website and they post a brief. The brief describes what they want, and we then broadcast those requirements to designers around the world. We open up that project to designers from New York to New Delhi to Singapore and Sydney. And those designers are then invited to respond. And business will receive scores of different designs from those designers. Typically, a project will receive between 90 and 150 different designs. It's not uncommon to get over 100 different designs to choose from. The business then gets to select their favourite design and only pays for and buys that design. So you can see that crowdsourcing is a very powerful process. In a nutshell, crowdsourcing is basically outsourcing on steroids. It reduces risk, it lets businesses harness multiple brains from around the world. Instead of just one supplier, you get to tap into the whole world. At Design Crowd, we've run thousands of different projects, and it's been operating for about 2 years. These are the things that jump out at me, that have jumped out at me over that time, I see again and again as the key success factors in a crowdsourcing project. And they don't only apply to Design Crowd, they apply to running a crowdsourcing project anywhere. The most important tip would be selecting the right task to crowdsource. And I think Ross's taxonomy of crowdsourcing sites is a really good, view of the landscape and highlights the different applications of crowdsourcing. I've pulled out a few here that I think are particularly useful for a small business. So discrete creative tasks like design, photography, copywriting, problem-solving tasks, so idea generation and programming, gathering opinions and feedback from your customers through something like user voice, and small tasks, high volumes of small tasks. Those things are particularly useful for small businesses. I wouldn't recommend crowdsourcing things that are sensitive, private information, extremely complex tasks that require deep industry expertise. That can be done. I think some of the examples Matt has shown proves that can be done, and sites like Innocentive do have a lot of physicists and people solving problems for NASA. But for a small business, I would focus on simpler, more discrete tasks. The second, and this is the second most important thing, is use an existing crowdsourcing service or community. Don't try and build your own. Using an existing service gives you 2 things. The first is it gives you scale of suppliers. And you want that to be in the hundreds or the thousands, preferably over 5,000. The second thing that this gives you is guidance. So when running a crowdsourcing process, there's certain rules and guidelines that will help you get a good result, and a good crowdsourcing platform will hold your hand along the way. So basically a good platform will help you with these next few steps, and basically deciding on the budget and how much you're going to offer and how much you're willing to pay for a crowdsourcing project is important. One of the key distinctions between crowdsourcing and traditional outsourcing is the objective and the outcome. So traditional outsourcing is good for cutting costs. It's a tender-based process where suppliers undercut each other, and then you probably will choose the cheapest one. Now, crowdsourcing, on the other hand, asks people to compete based on quality, not cost. So you set a price, and then you decide which is the best, highest quality, most creative solution, design, or idea from within that group. So with crowdsourcing, if you're penny pinching, consider outsourcing. But if you want to get the best value for money and the most creativity and ideas possible for a budget, then look at crowdsourcing. Another thing that we see on Design Crowd is that engaging with the people and the suppliers who are submitting to your site is really important for getting a good result. If you give feedback to the designers that are submitting on Design Crowd, you'll triple the response that you get from them. So feedback to these people contributing, the people in the crowd, and an ongoing dialogue is really important. The last phase of the crowdsourcing process is to make a decision, and that can sometimes be difficult. A really good example is Vegemite's iSnack experiment. And they received 48,000 name ideas for their new type of Vegemite. The mistake they then made is a couple of strategic boffins sat in a room and picked their favourite from that 48,000, which was iSnack 2.0. And it got absolutely panned. And they did a backflip, and they had to go back to the crowd and get help with choosing a better name. What this example highlights, and it applies for big brands and also small businesses, is that doing crowdsourcing doesn't replace the need to do things like market research or get expert opinions. And making your decision, you can get all the great ideas in the world, but if you pick the wrong one, then all that effort can go to waste. So, in summary, if you need something, if you need an idea, if you need a problem solved, you need a design created, consider crowdsourcing. And in particular, if you need a logo design, consider Design Crowd.
Great. Thank you.